My dream is to become a CTO. That was my aim when I started the MBA. And then what happened was I started the MBA and everything changed. Hello, my name's Peter Levermore. I'm the CEO of Peraled. Peraled is a venture-backed startup company from the UK that's developing a new technology for displays. Essentially, Peraled technology allows the screen on your smartphone, your television, or your laptop to be more colourful and therefore also more lifelike. So my background is physics. So I'm a physicist by training. I graduated from Durham University and then Imperial College London with a PhD in physics. And in particular, I specialised in a technology called OLED. Now OLED, it stands for Organic Light Emitting Diode, and it's a relatively new technology that's now found in really all high-end smartphones around the world, such as the Samsung Galaxy or the iPhone. And so then after completing my PhD, I basically started to travel. I went straight into industry and I worked for different startup companies, for different global corporations all over the world. And then it was late 2013 that I moved to Germany and I started working for Merck KGaA. And it was at that time that I decided to do the EMBA. And the reason I did this was that I was already very, very experienced in terms of technology. But what I found was that day to day, I was working more and more with different functions. So for example, I was working with sales and marketing, or with accounts, or with patent lawyers, or with HR. And I was having to manage a team that was in several different countries. And so there were challenges with that, different personalities and different cultures. And so what I felt was that I really needed to strengthen my skills beyond just technology. And so that's why I decided to do the MBA. And I looked around, and obviously WHU is clearly the strongest kind of university to do an MBA in Germany, but it's also one of the strongest in Europe and worldwide. And in particular, what I really liked about the course was that it's part of the Kellogg network. So it had this international element that I really wanted as well as part of the MBA. One of my first memories from the MBA program was actually the very first module, which was called Leadership in Organizations. And this was done by the late Professor Keith Murnaghan. And it was an amazing module. But what I remember in particular was at the start of that module, we were asked to write a letter to ourselves, to write down all our hopes and dreams for the program. And we were to open this letter at the end of the program. And I remember that I wrote down, my dream is to become a CTO and to develop products that matter. That was my aim when I started the MBA. And then what happened was I started the MBA and everything changed. My entire perspective was changed. Within just over a year, I'd quit my job at Merck and I'd founded my own technology company. And so I went from dreaming of being a CTO to, in just over a year, actually being a CEO of my own technology company. That was how things changed for me. And what I would say is that my classmates played a huge part in this, because within the cohort, there was so much knowledge, so much experience, but also so much encouragement there. So, when I told people that, my dream was to become a CTO, they were like, oh, no worries, you can do that already, no problem. Why don't you start your own company instead? And so the months passed by, and then I started coming up with ideas for startups. And from my classmates, I could get kind of feedback, encouragement, often criticism as well for my ideas. And this was really, really helpful. And what I do remember was one conversation in particular with one of my classmates, and he worked in private equity and investment. And I remember what he said to me is he said, well, you can do this, you're credible. When you talk about a subject that you know about, people listen. You're the kind of person that we would want to be running a technology company for us as an investor. And when I received that kind of feedback, it just gave me this confidence to really sort of take the leap, quit my job and found my own company. So yeah, it was a wonderful experience for me. Yes, so to start with, my company was actually simply a technology consulting company. So I used to travel around the world to Europe, South America, North America, advising companies how to do research and development and product development. And this was good, but it wasn't the ultimate goal. You know, my goal was to develop my own products and to develop products that make a difference. And so what WHU did was they helped me to evolve my business from this technology consulting to becoming a real sort of R&D company. And of course, to do this, I needed a business plan. And so in fact, the very first draft of the Peraled business plan was my WHU master's thesis. So I worked on this thesis with Professor Serdan Ozkan, who he is the professor of innovation and corporate transformation at WHU. And we developed the business plan. And over the coming months and years, we received many, many compliments from investors about this business plan, about the depth of content there. And actually, I have it here with me right now, which is this was my master's thesis from way back in August 2017. So this was the very first draft that was prepared for Peraled. Peraled is a display technology company. The mission of Peraled is to make the displays in our smartphones and televisions more colourful. And why would we want to do this? Well, although the displays in current smartphones are impressive, they actually only reproduce about 52% of the colours that we see around us in day-to-day life. All of the other colours are actually missing from the display. And so the aim of Peraled is to increase this all the way up to 76%, which is actually aligned to the new standards that have been introduced for displays as a target for the future. And Peraled can meet this target using perovskite LED technology. So this is where the name Peraled comes from. It's actually a portmanteau of the word perovskite and LED. And perovskites are this really cool, relatively unexplored material class. And I'll be a little bit technical for a while here, but a perovskite has a very specific crystal structure. And this crystal structure, it allows that all of the photons that the perovskite emit are actually a very similar color. And what this means is that the light that is emitted is very saturated. It allows the perovskite to reproduce really deep red, really deep green, really deep blue, which you need for a display that other materials cannot achieve. And so Peraled has proprietary technology relating to perovskite LED. We actually have an extensive patent portfolio. And for this reason, we recently received a very strong seed investment of $2 million from the KAUST Innovation Fund. Now, the KAUST Innovation Fund is the innovation fund that is attached to KAUST, which is the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, which is based just outside of Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. And the KAUST Investment Fund is particularly strong in its investment in deep tech companies. And what they do is they make the world-class facilities of KAUST available to the startups that they invest in. And these facilities are extraordinary in their quality. And so right now, Peraled is setting up a subsidiary in Saudi Arabia. This will be completed in the coming months. And then our goal is very, very clear. By the end of 2022, we want to develop prototypes and we want to demonstrate what will be the most colorful display in the world. So for me, it was the group work. There's a very, very heavy emphasis on co-working and working together. You actually do much more work in groups than you do alone. And for me, this is how it should be. I used to love the group exercises. We'd be working and chatting until late in the night and even early in the morning. And then you should probably go to bed, but you don't. You go and have a drink together, you talk some more, you build the relationships, and then you get up early the next morning and you do it all over again. And this was a fantastic way to build up the network and build up the experience. I also really enjoyed all of the overseas modules. I was fortunate enough to go to modules in Miami, in Chicago, and in Tel Aviv, and each of these were amazing experiences. Simply go for it. It can be an amazing and life-changing couple of years. It's hard work, really. Don't underestimate that. It is very, very hard work. But for me, it was absolutely worth it because of the new skills that I learned, but also the way that my perspectives changed on work and what I could achieve. So yes, go for it.